Shotgun to shotgun.
Doc Shotgun.
Right. Forward. Ancestral heat. Okay. All right. No, there's no village rules here, I guess, because obviously this is the first time I'm doing an online presentation. So I don't know if the village rules will apply because normally I do face-to-face presentations. So this is the first time doing an online presentation. But you know, you can read a couple of the bullet points here, but if it doesn't apply, then we can move to the next slide. That's cool. All right. So I created a documentary called The Man in the Mirror. Well, the works was in process in the year of 2013. I decided to put on this documentary because I felt it was imperative for a brother to tell his story when it comes to trauma, you know, and overcoming adversity. So I put together this documentary with the idea of basically speaking on my life experience growing up in the United Kingdom as a Nigerian and going through all the trials and tribulations I went through being placed in the foster care system, and also, you know, just basically being in a suburban part of the United Kingdom around predominantly white folks, and just basically going through the transition where I was in between staying with, well, at one point staying with the foster carers who were middle-class white family, then kind of going back and forth to my biological parent, my mother, who's Nigerian, and also basically just once again adapting to the inner city areas of London, where I went through other trials and tribulations and so forth. Also, the documentary is about some of the controversial subjects that are still stigmatized within our communities, you know, in Britain and other parts of the diaspora, which is incarceration, you know, sexual abuse, foster care, domestic violence, mental health, and the public school system. So, you know, it was an honor for me to do something like this and share it amongst the community, you know, basically to give an insight of certain stories which wasn't really told too often, you know, coming from a perspective of a black male what's been abused. So that's just a brief background of what I went through as a young person. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Is everybody with me? Yeah. Cool. Oh, everybody. Next slide. Let's move to the next slide. Okay. Okay. All right. I have this slide here, and the reason why I asked this question to our people, you know, mainly our brothers, is when you look in the mirror, who do you see? When you look in the mirror, you know, and the purpose of me asking this question is for us to kind of take a moment and, you know, recognize who we truly are, you know, and this is one of those questions which some people might find it easy to answer and some people might find it a challenge, but what's most important is honesty. So when answering a question like this, it's always about honesty with what we see when we look in the mirror, because it's more or less like, to me, it's more or less like a self-reflective moment, you know, of identifying the greatness as well as the negatives, you know, and see what we can make, you know, see what we can make a change on within our own personal lives. So this was a question I thought was important for me to ask. So, you know, if there's something which we want to come back to later, we can come back to this later. And that's about it, really. But we'll move on to the next slide. Okay. Okay, so the basically this is something which I obviously put together and wanted to. This is a statement I made, and when we go through certain situations as a melanated people in the diaspora, certain people who lack the knowledge might see our condition as something which they cannot explain, but always look at things on the surface. So when they look at things on the surface without doing their research on the root cause of the issue, can just lead to confusion. So people just perceive things as they appear. So this is obviously a statement which I put out there for our brothers and sisters. So for myself, putting together this presentation and giving you a bit of an insight on a few things which you either already know or you don't know. I just felt like let me just put this out there so people can kind of just try their best to dissect what this statement is actually trying to say to them. All right, let's move to the next slide. Okay, so what is the psychological effect of the Black man being raised and conditioned in a white patriarchy society without knowledge of self? All right, so we can move on from that. Let's move on. Yeah, so Black people are the targets of the largest psychological details why this is the case. So let's move on. Yeah, so about intergenerational trauma. Traumatic event that began years prior to the current generation and has impacted the ways in which individuals within our family understand, cope with the healing from trauma. Many individuals cannot identify with these behaviors that can also lead to catastrophic self-destructive patterns, whether towards themselves, family members, and those they generally interact with. All right, let's move on. All right, so these are some figures I put out there for myself, being located over here in the United Kingdom. So as you see, these are some figures I have here. So according to the census, so basically the census have probably been recently updated, but obviously this is what obviously I found from the last one, that the total population in England and Wales is 56.1 million, with 86% being white. So people from Asian ethnicity groups made up from second largest of the population at 7.5%, followed by Black ethnic groups at 3.3%, and mixed ethnic groups at 2.2%. So as you can see already, there is a minority in this United Kingdom where you can fit the United Kingdom geographically in the state of Texas about 4 to 6 times. So you can just imagine, that there's only a small percentage of us over here. So okay, let's move on to the next slide. So a lot of the risk factors which the brothers over here can experience due to the condition which we live in are, the drug and alcohol misuse, history of trauma and abuse, unemployment, social isolation, poverty, poor social conditions, imprisonment, violence, family breakdown. So obviously these are the things where we're aware of, that certain brothers, or a lot of brothers, go through in different parts of the diaspora. So as I said, once again, quite a few of these slides I'm going to go through are probably relatable, so you can see how all of this interlinks and what we're up against as a people when it comes to our condition. So if we move to the next slide. All right, so we're looking to the social condition, economic condition, and a mental condition. And we're also going to look at obviously the problems at hand, and obviously look into what solutions can be presented. So let's get to the next slide. Social condition. Right, next slide. Good, good, good. All right. All right, West African child left in the care system. All right, so this is something. Okay, someone having. Okay, can everybody hear me? By the way, you good? Okay, cool. Someone's saying they have trouble hearing me. All right, cool. If anyone can't hear me, just drop a message or whatever. I try to speak up. So this is something relatable to myself. So there's an article which mentions that private fostering is predominantly within the West African community, which dates back to the 50s and 60s. So obviously, back in the 50s, this more or less was something which was prominent within our West African communities and a few of our Caribbean communities, where a lot of the children, when the parents migrated, was placed into the foster care system with white families who basically stayed in a lot of suburban areas of the United Kingdom. So with this, a lot of the parents what came over here from West Africa, I could talk obviously about my experience in particularly with my mother, who came over here, felt that she could obviously progress herself in this system and place myself into the care system, feeling or thinking that I would have better opportunities whilst growing up in the white man's education system. But one of the main problems is the identity crisis, which a lot of the brothers and sisters have experienced being placed in this care system. Okay, let's move to the next slide. So basically, there's an article in the Voice newspaper saying that research suggests that social care in the UK is badly failing those who need it the most, and the emotional needs of young Black people in care are too often overlooked. So often children enter the care system as a result of family breakdown, abuse, neglect, alcoholism, domestic violence, or refugee status, sorry. Yet, instead of the care system being a safe haven for the children, their lives are turned upside down. So this is, other problematic factors which a lot of our brothers and sisters who are probably at adult age now, who have experienced this when they've obviously gone through care. My story is one of those stories which is a template of that, and obviously there's other brothers and sisters in care who have experienced the same thing, who I either know personally or it's been reported on. So this is a situation which is it's a major problem, because once again these brothers and sisters don't have that support system, especially an African-centered support system, obviously to help them overcome these barriers and traumas which they've been dealing with. So let's move to the next slide. Okay. So these are just some facts and figures here. Says 18.9% of Black households were made up of single parent with dependent children. The highest percentage out of all of the ethnic groups for the type of household. The lowest percentage was found amongst Asian households at 5.7%. So it says a Black ethnic group made up of 8.3% of single parent households with dependent children and 8.1% of other households. So for example, multi-generational households with dependent children compared with the 3.3% of the general population. So these figures you can also Google, and you can do your own research just to obviously see what is going on with our status and over here. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Okay, did we skip? All right, well, I think not too sure if we skipped a slide. Black men are 26% more likely than white men to be remanded in custody. They are also nearly 60% more likely to plead not guilty. So obviously, as I said, this is all by design. This is all by design, brothers and sisters. So this is, this is like institutionalized racism at its finest. We go through the, similar situations here in the UK as you lot do in the US and probably maybe other parts of the diaspora. It says black men were over 3 times as likely to be arrested than white men. There were 66 arrests for every 1,000 black men and 18 arrests for every 1,000 white men. Let's move to the next slide. Okay. So there are disproportionate numbers of black boys held in a youth offending centers. Black children were 4 times more likely than white children to be arrested. The majority came from a single parent household where the father was absent. There is evidence to show that black boys are more likely to plead not guilty to crimes than the white counterparts. Inevitably, this leads to long sentence when they are found guilty. In Britain, the black ethnic group has the highest proportion of lone parent households at 13%. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, here's a few more figures for you. So it says in the last year, 69% of arrests were of white children. This proportion is a decrease from 83% 10 years previously. Arrests of black children accounted for 16% of the latest year. So that's double the proportion of 10 years ago. All right, so, this is something which is not new. It's been like this for quite a while with our young black boys who have been obviously in situations where they were minding their own business or looking a certain way where, the police have suspicions of them doing something that they're not. And, I've obviously experienced this from obviously the work I've done in the past. I've worked in the public school system, and I've also worked with black boys who have been excluded from school and are placed in something which is called a PRU, which is known as a pupil referral unit. A lot of this, basically the PRUs, once again, function like these prisons where, they're all put into a place where it's just, everything is just self-destructive, and, it just leads to more catastrophic incidents, and, I've been dealing with this over the past 7 years. So it's been crazy. It's been crazy. So let's move to the next slide. All right. So yes, racial discrimination in the UK housing has a long history and deep roots. So it says studies of race and housing issues stretch back to the 1960s. That racial disparities in housing have persisted for decades, cannot be doubled, and is underscored by a raft of research over the past 6 decades, including a recent study of the Human City Institute. So yeah, a lot of these, a lot of black families stay in poor condition housing, where they have issues with probably like the alarm systems, or just poor housing, which has just obviously been a situation where you know, a lot, we have people who work, you know, for these housing departments who can not really focus on, you know, the necessities in order, you know, for people to live in housing which is just, you know, suitable and just basically helps them with their, you know, their mental, because you know, this is also a situation where there's a lot of discrimination, and it also is a hindrance for our brothers and sisters living in these poor housing. Let's move on to the next slide. All right. So yeah, these are living standards. So the living standards, Black adults are more likely to live in substandard accommodation than white people. 26.8% of Black people live in overcrowded accommodation, whilst the white people, it is in 8.3%. If you are ethnic minority person, you are still more likely to live in poverty. So, you know, those are the figures itself. As I said, all of this is by design. So I'm sure you brothers and sisters in the United States can relate to this. So yeah, this is all by design, and this is one in many issues, which obviously doesn't support our well-being at all. You know, so you can, this is why, you know, a lot of brothers or sisters go through situations where the system is just failing them, you know. All right, let's move to the next slide. All right, so we have over here, we have like a knife epidemic over here. So so basically at the start of 2019, there were 86 deaths in the capital, and in London itself, gang warfare is increasingly being driven by a ruthless battle of control of the drug market, and in more ways that the postcode wars. So what postcodes are a bit similar to like the zip codes out there. So there are, you know, these young brothers who feel that they have to protect their postcode, like, you know, people feeling that they have to protect their zip code. You know, with the lack of education, there has been more of these gangs. You know, we like to use that word gangs, but you know, these brothers and these young brothers getting together, feeling the need to get into rivalry with someone who may live across the road. So, you know, this is just something which it's something which saddens me, and I'm sure it's something what saddens everybody else, because this is what happens with the lack of knowledge and the support by either parent or, you know, our brothers and sisters, which can provide some holistic or African-centered support, obviously, to help these young brothers. So it says in 2018 was London's bloodiest year in almost a decade, as the murder toll reached 132. And obviously the last one says there were it's basically the second highest monthly towards recorded since April 2010, and saw London's murder rate overtake New York, which I know for a lot of you, that's probably something which I know may be surprising for those who don't know too much on the UK. So, you know, this is something which has been a bit crazy. All right, can we move to the next slide? Okay, let's look at the economic condition. So yes, unemployment rates were significantly higher for the ethnic minorities. I don't really like to use this word ethnic minorities, but this is how they put, you know, non-blacks, or let's say non-Africans, in a predicament. So whenever we're doing this, whenever we're trying to do this research, sometimes when it comes to certain stats we're trying to find in order to help us better understand what is going on in society, it can be a bit tricky or challenging to find certain stats which may be accurate when it comes to particular things like maybe, employment. So it says that black workers with degrees earn 23.1% less on average than white workers. So just imagine there's a lot of educated brothers and sisters over here, who, have the paper, but, they're still earning less than. So you can see in itself, this is all by design. It's institutionalized racism at its finest. And, this is what we have to deal with. So it says in Britain, significantly lower percentage of ethnic minorities at 8.8% worked as managers, directors, and senior officers compared with white people, 10.7%. And this was particularly true Caribbean or black people. And you see that you see the issue there. You say the African, Caribbean, and black people. That's creating the confusion right there. And as I said, with a lack of education, we ain't seeing that. We may not all see ourselves as African. But this is just some of the figures I just wanted to show when it comes to employment, to see how institutionalized racism plays a major part of our struggles out here. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so let's check the house prices in London. So it's obviously risen by 1.6% since November 2019, taking the average property value up to 92. Sorry if I can see that. So that's 483,922. My apologies. Sorry. All right, let's move to the next slide. So these are also some of the figures on the shared accommodations out here. And obviously the average rent in London, according to HomeLet, the average rent in London for the new tenancies is 1,665 a month. If you're someone what uses a conversion app, then you can compare that to the cost of living in the United States and other parts of the diaspora. So it is quite expensive. A lot of the brothers and sisters right now are, they're facing an economic crisis because they just can't keep up with the rent. So they choose to move out to suburban parts of the United Kingdom where it might be cheaper. However, there are a lot of brothers and sisters who are moving across the pond, for just a better standard of life. But even with the room accommodations, it's also quite expensive. So these are obviously the different parts of London, and you can see the figures. All right, let's move on. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay. I hope I'm not losing everybody. And the reason why I wanted to show everybody this, and also to make clear, is when it comes to earnings, cost of living, all of that, it plays a big part of our struggles, as a people, but as I said, later on, I want to obviously get into some ways where we can find some solutions, but I'm just giving you some research I have on the slides. So this is average earnings and salary in the UK. Average earnings from February 2020, average regularly pay before tax. So this is before tax and other deductions for employees in Britain was estimated at 511 per week in normal terms. So, you can't even live on that. Where you see the average salary, a person working in the UK typically earns around 71,000 GBP. Sorry, but that 71,000, it can seem a lot to certain people. It can seem, not as much, but not even, the average person. makes that, and that's on the real, or the average person in our African communities. You know? So this is just something where, you know, I'm sure that these figures, you know, are not exactly accurate, but this is probably something which they're basing on the figures in a lot of the white communities, you know, in some of the affluent areas. So okay, let's move forward. Next slide. All right, let's look at the mental condition, because all of this plays a part in our mental condition as well. So it says one of the most comprehensive studies of mental health care in England ever conducted has sharply criticized provision for men of African and Caribbean heritage. So the Mental Health Task Force report says there is evidence of systematic failure, and that Black men are nearly 7 times more likely to be detained under the Mental Health Care Act or admitted as inpatients than white men. So as I said, once again, this is all by design, people. This is all by, so this is something which I'm sure the brothers and sisters can relate to. Let's move to the next slide. So it says from 1st of April 2007 until 31st of December 2013. I know this dates back quite a bit, but if it has changed, it would have probably increased. Yeah, because this ain't gonna decline because of what they are trying to plan behind the scenes. It's like a pandemic here. So it's, you know, it says there were 84 recorded self-inflicted deaths among 18 to 24-year-olds in custody. So there is this, out here, there are a lot of deaths in custody when it comes to our people. You know, there's certain documentaries, I can't really name any on top of my head, but there are evidence of this, and some of these situations of our people dying in custody have been unresolved, unfortunately. So, you know, this is something where our brothers and sisters have, you know, they've been protesting and going on marches and so forth. So this is something I hope we can resolve within our community. So it says this represents 90% of all recorded self-inflicted deaths in this period. And it says on the 6th of February 2014, the Justice Secretary announced an independent review into self-inflicted deaths in National Offenders Management Services. So it says in custody of 18 to 24-year-olds. The purpose of the Harris review is to make recommendations to reduce the risk of future self-inflicted deaths, you know, which we all know, sorry for my language, can be BS, because, you know, this is something which, as I said, there's a lot going on behind the scenes, which needs to be investigated, really, so our people can obviously get that justice necessary, by any means necessary. All right, let's move to the next slide. So it says 1 in 4 Black men will get prostate cancer at some point in their lives. So this, you know, there's research online where people can Google and find this information out. This is obviously in the United Kingdom here. This is African Caribbean. People are more likely to receive medication rather than be offered talking treatments such as psychotherapy, and are overrepresented in a high and medium secure units in prison. So yeah, this is just the facts here. As I said, I used to work in the public school system with young people, quote unquote, who have ADHD. So I've worked with these children and stuff. And as I said, this is just one of the many Jedi mind tricks which they have, and which they are imposing war upon us. You know, so it's always necessary for our parents to be clued up and educated on this, and our people as well, so we don't fall for the okie doke. All right, let's move to another slide. So it says, is there institutionalized racism in mental health care? Yes, so it says a BBC report states Black people are being failed by the UK's mental health services, as I mentioned not too long ago. As the statistics suggest, a Black man in the UK is 7 times more likely than a white man to be diagnosed with a serious mental health condition, such as schizophrenia or bipolar. And Black people are also 4 times more likely to be sections under the Mental Health Care Act, which I mentioned. Issues such as unemployment and poverty. So as I was saying before, with the economic and social condition over here does play a huge part on our mental capability of functioning the way we're supposed to function. Especially when you're living in a concrete jungle. Let's move to the next slide, please. So yeah, this is basically our young Black men's mental health. So it says, so young Black men growing up in the UK are more likely to face multiple and significant risk factors for poor mental health, including the stresses of living in poverty, housing, insecurity and homelessness, difficulties at school, and subsequent reduced access to opportunities. So I think later on, I'm not even too sure that I might even go into how things are with our young boys, how they're coping in the public school system. As I said, this is not that much different from what's going on in different parts of the diaspora. So as I said earlier, I'm sure you lot can relate to this. So experience of racism, however, appear to be a major influence on the mental health of Black boys and young men that wear down their resilience during teenage and young adult years. From the evaluation found evidence of the incrementally damaging impact of a consistent stream of negative media representation of Black men and demonizing portrayals of Black culture. So I said this, we see this through the media. As I said, a lot of the young brothers have been, they've grown up in single parent households. So a lot of the times a lot of them don't necessarily get that time with their mothers because they may have to work 2 jobs and so forth. So they don't really, they're not always able to spend that time necessary in the household to just give, show that love and attention and affection. So they take to the streets and so forth, and they look for role models outside the home. So let's move to the next slide. Yeah, so this is a very good question, because this has been a question where a lot of people always ask daily, around the globe. So why abused men are staying silent. So it says a report from the BBC News website states male survivors of childhood sexual abuse within the Black community are being let down by the government and the needs have been overlooked. Now, we shouldn't have no expectation on the government trying to support our people. We know for many years, the government does not have our best interests at heart, especially if it's a fully functional white supremacy government. So this is just a situation out here which we shouldn't expect nothing more from them, and this is something which we need to take in our own hands to offer them the best support needed. There are different 1 or 2 rites of passage programs out there which could obviously support our brothers and sisters, but we have to get acquainted as a people, and not just use Facebook to, as a platform where we're gonna be what's the words I will call it, to be just keep it to ourselves. We should be forthcoming and try to get to know what our people are doing in different parts of the world, just rather than just posting up, just for the sake of posting. But yeah, let me go on to the next slide. All right. So what I would normally do is, if this was something where, because I don't know how many people are watching this, but normally if I'm having a face-to-face presentation, I would ask these type of questions, rather than just me giving that information out there, because it's always good to see things from other people's perspectives, because I'm not a person that knows everything. You understand where I'm coming from? I'm still learning daily, so I would be asking people what their perception or perspective on interracial trauma is, and I would ask, what are some of the patterns identified or associated with intergenerational trauma? Can intergenerational trauma affect our people globally? Well, that's something which we already know, but it's always good to get people's feedback on that. So this is something I'll just do face to face. Okay, let's move to the other slide. Next slide. Okay, so this is just a couple of bullet points. The impact of the intergenerational trauma to the African community, untreated and unresolved thoughts from traumatic events, which I mentioned earlier, which can lead to verbal, physical, and sexual abuse patterns, complicated personality traits or personal disorders, repeated negative patterns of behavior, including beliefs about parenting. All right, let's move forward. Next slide. So once again, asking people's feedback on what they think abuse is. And this is also an interesting one, because for those who are on my Facebook, I know there's certain people in here who are on my social media page, or people in here who may be on my page but don't realize they are. I'm obviously somebody what will put out a lot of questions out there to the melanated Facebook public, just to get their feedback, because it's always interesting to see how the mind works, and just basically trying to get people's feedback on what they think is right from wrong. But obviously, going back to this abuse, I did put up a question not too long ago on physical abuse, because a lot of our adults now who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and 60s, obviously probably went through physical abuse. And I know when I put the question up the other day, certain people amongst us, they had different perceptions. Certain people believed, spanking a child isn't necessary. Others did, but we have to also take this seriously, because obviously abuse is something which is quite broad. So it's not just about the physical abuse, it's also about systematic abuse, which I've been speaking about throughout this presentation today. There's also sexual abuse, which is another thing which is swept under the rug, and a lot of us are still struggling to basically speak out about this. And there's also emotional abuse as well. So that's another factor, which is a situation which is played out, with our people. All right. Let's move to the next slide. If there's a Q&A after, if anyone wants to ask questions, that's fine. So this is another question. So are you the abused or the abuser? A lot of the times there are people out there who's expressed on social media, or just media in general, about the abuser, and them being the abused. But one thing which we also need to take in consideration is, is that the case? Are people telling the truth? Where is the evidence? Because a lot of the times we are quick to jump on the bandwagon, so this is just something which is, it's not an easy thing to dissect. But as I said, once we can identify the patterns of abuse and kind of look into the root cause of things, then we can obviously find solutions, And we also need to ask ourselves, can you admit whether or not you're breaking the cycle of intergenerational curses by healing? And this is something which many of our people struggle with as well, and they look for outlets like social media to vent, because maybe they feel it's a place where people will hear them. But it is a double-edged sword at times, because a lot of our people are not doing that healing work within, and also approaching people, brothers and sisters in our community who have African-centered services to help with that process of healing. We're in the digital age right now, so we should use social media to our advantage rather than to our disadvantage by becoming self-destructive. We need to start being forthcoming and messaging people. If we see that there's people on our page who can offer support to assist us, let's message them. Let's not just wait until they get popular and then message them and just believe the hype. There's our brothers and sisters who are not as popular as Umar Johnson or whatever. You understand where I'm coming from, where they can obviously offer you the support. So let's not waste time, brothers and sisters. But let me go to the next slide. Let's go to the next. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, who's telling the truth, the accused or the accuser? Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is food for thought. So this is basically accountability. This is accountability for the brothers. Even for myself as well. I have to hold myself accountable every single day. It's so imperative I hold myself accountable, because I have to look at the times where I've done damage, and I also have to work on becoming a better version of myself. So basically, right about now, I will be launching later on in the year our platform, My Brothers Keeper Wellness and Empowerment Circle, and program, which will assist our brothers with their self-development and healing. We need to, because a lot of our brothers like to internalize things, whereas for the sisters, I'm not saying every sister, but there are a lot of sisters out there who are, they're just more vocal. They're more vocal, and I also, will be doing like an accountability workshop with our brothers, which will be quite consistent. So, these are some of the questions, I'll put together, and it's just something where we just need to take, we just need to be honest with ourselves, because that's something which we struggle with as a people. Not everybody's honest with themselves. I am not ashamed to say whether I've made mistakes or not. People know me, I'm quite transparent and real. So, I ain't gonna be giving false representation of myself. I'm just somebody who is learning, just like everybody here. And yeah, these accountability is imperative. But it's food for thought anyway. So if you've read the questions, that's fine. But these are some of the questions put together. If you want to move to the next slide. Yeah, so let's not leave out the human trafficking, because this is a topic which isn't brought up. This is not this is something which isn't brought up too regularly. So human trafficking. So it's human trafficking of Nigerian women to Italy began to occur in the 1980s because of the demand for low-skilled labor in agriculture and services. You know, so this is also another thing we have to look into. You know, because whatever I do, I like there to be balance. So it's not just about the unspoken truth behind the black man's abuse in regards to them being vulnerable, but it's about how we treat our sisters as well. So obviously this is something where, you know, a lot of brothers have fell slaves to the white patriarchy system, and are also helping the colonizer, you know, by adding more to the psychological damage, you know, which our people are experiencing. You know, so this is also something which needs to be looked at. Sorry, I'm connected with a couple of organizations. I think there's an organization called is it African Children's Charity or I think it's African Children's Charity. Don't quote me on that, but there is a couple of organizations I'm connected to who's also spoken at previous events I have held in London, who actually look into this. So if I do get the information and anyone is interested, just, you know, drop a message and I will search them up, and I will just get, you know, I'll get you acquainted. Okay, so let's move to the next slide. Yeah. So this is, as I was saying before, with the research shown so far, you can see there's going to be certain similarities from the West in the diaspora. What's his email? Whose email? Okay, sorry, I'm looking at the messages. Let me not get too confused, but yeah, I can send you all the information you need. So yes, in regards to the Europe and USA, because obviously the United Kingdom is on the edge, so it's just outside Europe, so it's not a part of Europe, it's outside Europe. So there are going to be a lot of similarities with Europe and the US with a lot of these figures shown. I'm not going to go through every single slide today, but let's move forward. Let's move forward. So yeah, this is just you know, a bit of history. You know, slavery in the British colonies. So this is just a bit of history. The Royal African Company monopoly ended in 1689. After that date, many more English merchants engaged in the slave trade, greatly increased the number of enslaved people being transported. Africans who survived the brutal Middle Passage usually arrived in the West Indies, often in Barbados. From there, they were transported to the mainland England colonies on company ships. So yeah, so a few of these places in the United Kingdom. So, you know, I know most people, when they think of the United Kingdom, they just think of London. No, there's plenty of other places in the United Kingdom, like Bristol, Liverpool, Birmingham, Manchester. These are main cities in the United Kingdom. I know some people who are listening to this may have relatives out here as well, or have visited. So, you know, London is not the only place we have out here. But let's move forward to the next slide. Next slide, next slide. Next slide. I want to go. So yeah, this is what I wanted to come to. So in regards to the public school system, so I used to work in PRUs, which are known as pupil referral units. So I did this work 5 to 7 years ago, and these are just some of the bullet points which we come up against. So when Black boys are angry or disruptive, they were more likely to be treated punitively rather than looking for underlying issues. You know, once again, you know, looking at things on the surface, you know, rather exploring the root cause. You know, so relationships are more likely to be negative or break down between parent and school, leading to a higher level of exclusions. So the pupil referral units, a lot of times are where the schools feel that these children should be sent to, which also operates like a prison facility, because once you, the one I worked in had like all these automatic locking systems. So they couldn't just freely go outside or anything like that. And personally, it makes their behavior a lot worse than it was in the school without the right intervention. I've also worked with intervention programs where we offered support to our, you know, to our young boys, and at the end of the day, if they don't feel like they can trust you, you know, they're gonna play up, you know, because it's about building that relationship, you know, not just the relationship with the parent, because of there's a lot of dysfunctionalities within the household, but you know, you have to build a relationship with them, you know, because without everything is a numbers game. Let's just say that everything is a numbers game when it comes to this. This is just all numbers, you know. So this is how the prison pipeline and the public school system, this is how they interlink, because this is all a test, you know. This is all a test. So it says early access to emotional well-being support could manage behavior and reduce exclusions. The style of teaching or curriculum can mean that some Black boys are getting left behind at a young age or are excluded, not attending or not engaging. You know, not everybody is gonna, everybody's got different learning styles, you know, so some of these children can't sit there for long lengths of time, you know. It ain't happening, you know. Everybody's got other learning styles, which is just basically something which needs to be implemented. So the negative stereotyping, okay, that's been going on for so long, or labeling the Black boys and parents, you know, because a lot of these teachers will label, as we already know. And yeah, as we know, a lot of our parents, they're struggling to engage with the schools, therefore do not have opportunities to prevent potential exclusion, you know. And look, if there is a sister in the United Kingdom, in London, based in London, Cheryl Phoenix, and she deals with the Black child agenda. So Cheryl Phoenix also works closely with the parents, you know, and the schools, where a lot of these children are not mistreated and obviously treated unfairly. So yeah, that's something. Cheryl Phoenix is a good contact to get information from. And yeah, over here, we're putting in the work over here. There's a few soldiers doing what they need to do over here, but as I said, it's not an easy road, you know, especially when a lot of our brothers and sisters need to decolonize the mind, body, and soul, because it's necessary. Okay, let's move to the next slide. Yeah, so this is another question. Where are the absent fathers? You know, are they playing a active role? Are they playing an active role in their children's life? What impact does an absent father have when they're not present? You know, A lot of us have experienced that. When they're not present, what's the impact? You know, how can we encourage our fathers to get involved? You know, I know a lot of the times, a lot of the mothers lose contact with the fathers. You know, they get into situations. They get into situations where they have a fallout, and the father, you know, when they have an issue with the mother, then they take it out on the children by not wanting to see the children. So this is something which also needs to be investigated. And, you know, we need to make improvements, you know, as a people. We need to create certain African-centered intervention programs, you know, because this is all necessary, you know, and that's why I like asking the questions I do on Facebook. There's always a method behind what I do, so people don't think I just ask questions for the sake of it. You know, I always connect with different brothers and sisters in the diaspora because I'm only one man. There's only so much I can do. So I'm doing these presentations so I can just, you know, share the knowledge I have and just network and interact with my brothers and sisters in different parts of the diaspora. So let's move to another slide. Okay, well, this is not to offend nobody with this. It's not to offend nobody because I'm aware of, you know, I'm aware of domestic violence. I'm also aware of many brothers mistreating our melanated queens, you know. However, there are also situations out there where, you know, there are sisters amongst us who are physically and verbally abusive towards our brothers. So let's you know, not pretend that this doesn't happen. You know, let's not live in a fantasy world. It's just, you know, let me tell you something. I know people personally what's gone through it. I know people personally what's gone through it. So it's something where not all men will feel comfortable speaking out against it because of how they may be seen. You know, none of us are exempt from abuse. You know, it's not a thing which just falls on whether it's the black man or the black woman, you know. So this is something, as I said, I like to keep a balanced breakfast over here. It's about keeping a balanced breakfast so we can see things on both different ends of the spectrum. Let's move to the next slide, please. So our mental, physical, spiritual well-being is imperative to take care of and is a reflection of self, especially when being out of sync or balance, creating various dysfunctionalities which disrupts our internal navigational system and the pineal gland. Yes, so this is something I just cooked up there. You know, it's, as I said, it's imperative, brothers and sisters, to take care of ourselves by any means necessary. Sorry, my phone is popping off at the moment. I don't know why that is. Why not? Every time I'm doing a presentation all live, this happens. My apologies. So yeah, we just need to take a step back, breathe, dissect, and self-evaluate. We need to do this quite often, and I know it's not easy because a lot of brothers and sisters are out there working jobs. So, you know, we get caught up in that pattern, that robotic pattern of 9 to 5s, you know, coming home, feeding the children, looking after grandma, sleep, next morning, you know, it's a repetitive cycle. But we need to take a step back, brothers and sisters, you know, because, you know, we're celebrating, you know, 100 years, Marcus Garvey. We're celebrating 100 years. You know, Marcus Messiah Garvey taught us to be self-reliant, you know. So if we can kind of look within and find our creative skill set, you know, we can start to be, we can be self-employed, you know, so we can obviously work on our own time schedules, spend more time with the children, and yeah, just be more effective that way. Because, you know, working Nothing when it comes to our well-being. Money is we need money. However, your well-being is more important. And if your well-being is jacked up, yeah, then we ain't making no money. So this is why healing is imperative. My apologies. Okay, let's move to the next slide, please. Sorry. Yes. Change the narrative. That's what it's about. We need to change our narrative. We need to change our projections. Sorry. We need to change our projections. We need to change our narrative. We need to change what we are feeding the psyche. You know, we need to change our diets. We need to change our narrative so we can be great again. So it's about changing our narrative, you know, because a lot of the times what we see on the media is not healthy. You know, when it comes to posting these videos and consistent videos and pictures up, whether it's a detrimental to our sisters, you know, where we are abusing our sisters, or even posting up videos of our people being brutalized. You know, I get it that we have to, at times we feel we need to share the knowledge and so forth, but it needs to, as I said, it's about having a balanced breakfast. We need to not continuously fuel things where we just get caught up. We just get caught up on this negativity because it's not helping us at all. You know, we need to have a balanced breakfast. You know, we need to also focus on the positives which can elevate us. Let's move to the next slide. Yeah, so a man who stands for nothing will fall for everything. Facts. Man who stands for nothing, Malcolm X said, man who stands for nothing will fall for everything. This is facts. You know, so, you know, we as brothers, you know, we have to do better. You know, we have to do better so we can bring that balance back, you know, when it comes to rebuilding the Black family. Next slide. Yeah, so basically this is my magnificent 7 steps towards self-reflection for the Black man. These are the questions I would ask. Do you love yourself? Are you at peace within? How can you better protect, serve and support when being an advocate of the Black woman? How you ever confronted your inner child who experienced pain while growing into an adult? What steps and actions do you take when managing your mental health and healing from any trauma? Are you honest with yourself by taking accountability for your own actions? How do you prepare yourself to stand as a Black man in today's society? So all of these things, all of these questions are important. This is something, my magnificent steps towards self-reflection. This will be something I will also be doing in my workshops and so forth in regards to asking these questions, because we will be putting them on a program of self-development, so they can move forward when it comes to their own well-being, and not, you know, enter our arena by the blame game, you know, because it's so easy to blame the Black woman, or the Black woman, or it's so easy to blame the Black man. It happens whether it's indirectly or directly. You know, everybody knows what they're doing, and we just need to be more mindful as a people. You know, it's about elevating each other. You know, it's also about our brothers taking accountability for their actions. Let's move to the next slide.
Can you hold on for a second? Let me write the rest.
Yes, someone spoke.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. So yes, can we move on? So we're almost done here anyway. We're almost done. So yeah, these are a few suggestions. Yeah. These are just a few suggestions. Like, basically, we need to create or research African-centered programs to educate our family, support our Black-owned businesses, using social media as a tool by any means necessary to find our melanated brothers and sisters who work independently to providing services in economics, legal, and healthcare. So I'm gonna stop here with this slide. But what I'm gonna also do is just before anyone asks questions, just to remind everybody, my name is Raj Oluboyega Tokunbo Odekunle, originally from Nigeria, founding member of the Man in the Mirror Project and My Brother's Keeper Wellness and Empowerment Circle. And we are looking forward to launching our program later this year in October, November, in regards to our online platform to help our brothers with their self-development and well-being. So that's what we're going to be doing later on in the year. I will keep everybody informed as I normally do and stuff. I've also got an event coming up on the 5th of September, which I'll be hosting. It's a diaspora call to action event. How can our brothers protect themselves and heal from trauma? Now, this event is not just for the Black man, it's for the Black woman and child, because it's whatever issue one has, it's the other person's issue. We need to deal with this together as a collective, yeah, without the being sensitive or just thinking it's just for just for the brothers. This is going to be a brilliant event I'm hosting. I have activist speakers, practitioners from the UK and the US, so this is something which I'll be looking forward to. And I will be coming back to the States, hosting my Black Mental Health Matters US tour on the unspoken truth behind the Black man's abuse. So that's me done. Any questions?
Do you have any of this on a Facebook page or website?
Yes. So my website is tmitmproject.com. I've only recently opened up Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram is TMITM Project. My Twitter is TMITM Project 1. I'm on Facebook. I'm Ola Tokunbo. That's what people. You don't know me personally, so I'm Ola Tokunbo on social media. But if anyone wants to find out more information, they can drop an email to info@tmitmproject.com, or they just can log on to tmitmproject.com, which is the acronym the Man in the Mirror Project. Yeah, I hope everybody heard me, by the way.
Hello?
Yes, I don't know how many people. Is any questions? This is the first time I'm doing one of these, so.
I have a question. Is there stack or something? Can I just go and ask the question?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Alita Torre. I have a question regarding rites of passage program. So I homeschooled my son. He was always involved in my organizing and everything. And I felt Baba Afrik, who was a part of the Camp Humziko with us, he had a school for rites of passage. But by the time Justice was old enough, he had passed, Baba Afrik. And I find that one of our lacks, I don't know what it's like there in England, but one of the lacks we have as those that are conscious and doing the right thing in this respect have not really had rites of passage programs. I know we talked through the books, Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys, Asa Hilliard's book, To Be Young, Gifted, and Black. My whole thing is where, what has been your suggestions, especially for moms like myself? My son is finally in college, but to me, he's always needed a good program, and so he goes to Camp Zico. But what are some rites of passage suggestions that you have, um, in really supporting the fact that that's what we need? A lot of Black mothers in our communities do not have the resources to train up the boy, and we can't make them men. And so I'm always going back to the fact, where are the rites of passage programs?
Well, there's the odd person I am connected to. The program I'm starting with my team in late October, early November, we will be dealing with the 18-year-olds, 18 upwards. So we'll be working on different things in regards to self-defense, economics, nutrition, accountability workshops. So we will be offering a variety of different programs, workshops under one program, which will be accessible on our website. There is another brother in the United Kingdom who I'm connected with, I think, which has now put together like a international platform called it was called Manhood Academy, but I think now he's put together Manhood International, a brother called Davis. So he has a rites of passage program and platform for I think his one is under 18. So it's I can put you, if you can email me and send me your details. What I would do is I can get in contact with Davis or just forward you his information on. I know there's other brothers in the United States, but on top of my head, I can't obviously get their names. But if I need to get any information for you, I can easily search that up.
Yeah, I think there's a disconnect in my question. If I can clarify, is that okay?
Okay, go on.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you don't have a program and it's not effective, but I'm going back to the fact that majority, as a single mother, right? Majority of our sons do not want to be in the program because there is no connection in the community with the Black brothers that are doing the program. So if I say to my son, go to this program, when he was homeschooled, yeah, he's doing it. But at 18, he's now in college, right? And a lot of the young men that I work with Trayvon Martin's mother, I work with a lot of the youth that have been imprisoned or killed. Those parents, I'm talking about single Black mothers, need to find the rites of passage where before 18, where the child is illegal, right? Our Black boys, their streets have been their parents, right? Unless they're in like a Camp Zico or a New African Scouts program. We need the intervention prior to 18. So
yeah.
I'm asking, I think for me the disconnect, and maybe it's just different in the States, I find that we've lacked in getting them, that the school has been the teacher, right? And so therefore, I homeschooled mine, but the school has been the teacher. So therefore, our 18-year-olds, the ones that really need it, the ones that are ready, when I was left my school, I left to do social suspensions because they were just putting kids away. And our brothers, young brothers, really need rites of passage so they won't have to, by 18, say, well, I don't want it. I got a family in the streets. I'm trying to find out, where are those programs to connecting with these moms, with these young men now? And maybe I'm just really saying for the United States, maybe that's what it is. Because I find the disconnect is, it's not until the child is in need and harm do we then try to reach out to them in juvenile and prison. And I believe there's got to be more of a a place of what you're building and what you're doing prior to that, where they're open and they don't feel neglected and they don't find another way. They're just getting educated from these schools, and most of these schools, like the Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys says in the book, they're getting educated by white women mostly until they get home, and that's where we're losing our sons. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously you're saying prior 18, yeah. And as I was saying, that's why I mentioned that there's a brother out here in the United Kingdom who's got an international rites of passage program, Brother Davis. And I can, if you email me, I can send you his information. You can look him up. And when I come across the other people I know I've interacted with, I will also send you their information because they have, a rites of passage program for young Black boys, which are quite, they're quite heavy hitting. So what I mean by that is, they're quite solid with regards to the work they do and stuff. So they can definitely be of a benefit for your son.
Yeah, I used to do the Malcolm X grassroots movement in Birmingham with Mama Zenobia and Ahmed. So running the, Camp Zico program, New African Scouts is what I did. But, what I'm saying is, we only have so many Malcolm X grassroots movements in the country, and I'm not in Birmingham, but during the time I was here in Oakland, where I'm at now in California, and I feel one of the things as a community organizer, working with moms with children in so many ways, is that we don't have enough. And I think Malcolm X Grassroots Movement does a great job. I think someone just put it in the chat. But I think, brothers on the phone and those in the States, we need to have more conversation on how do we step it up and don't leave it to just one organization.
I agree with you. 100% agree with you. Absolutely. You definitely need to step it up. I'm here for the network. As I said, I do come out to the States as well, and obviously I will be doing presentations as well. I'm out there quite regularly. Obviously I haven't been out there recently just due to the lockdown and so forth, but it would be great for you to keep that contact. Okay, am I still here? Okay, I said 2 minutes.
Intro to O, and my dude that Timbuktu the Ave. For renew your passion, shun the condition, and not the who, what, when, where, and you are from. At last, put the higher in hierarchy. Climber, paint a picture, no primer, reppin' Garvey, and all that's godly. Sorry, I can't relate, I'm Warrior Masi. Zulu pull up on Fasi and catch a body. Enemies near and far declaring.